Welcome to the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. It's Friday, December 8th, 2023. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen and Ken K-Train. Kreitz.
All aboard!
I will apologize to everybody in advance. I'm recovering from being sick. I will try not to cough in everybody's ears who is listening to this podcast, but that's why I sound like I have tissue paper stuck up my nose. Last night, the Lakers beat the Pelicans 133-89 in Las Vegas during the late in-season tournament game. Lakers took off in the second quarter. They never looked back. I mean, it was basically a home game for the Lakers.
Yeah,
We can kind of talk about some of the dynamics of this when we talk about the next game, which I'm not looking forward to. But New Orleans struggled, 36% from the field. Trey Murphy, who came off the bench, was the team's highest scorer with 14 points. LeBron went for 30.
Very
took
efficient.
3 charges.
Very efficient.
Yeah, efficient 30. Took 3 charges. Lakers shoot 55%. It was just a rout. Like they just dominated. I mean, Ken, did you have any takeaways from this game other than just like maybe it's a bad game for the Pelicans? You know, Zion. A reporter asked Zion what he was going to do with the $500,000 if he won, and he just laughed. So maybe they partied a little early in Las Vegas before food. Yeah.
I love what Austin Reeves said after the game. He mentioned those 3 charges that LeBron said. Look, when your best players all in, taking charges. One of those charges was from the rotund Williamson. He's like, we were so excited. I mean, and James has given up his body at age 38. And he hit like 3 threes in a row in that second quarter. Mm-hmm. They were deep. They were like logo threes. And you're like, oh, my goodness. 9 of 12 from the field. He hit all 4 of his threes. You know, what's great for the Lakers, too, is they basically got to take the second half off for the most part. So AD and LeBron should have plenty in the tank for Saturday's game.
Yeah, Shannon, we saw, like I mentioned, Trey Murphy was the team's highest scorer for the Pelicans. He's still coming off the bench, though. Any concerns about that? Or do you think like there's still a good chance he ends up playing 30 minutes a game off the bench? Maybe they put him in the starting lineup at some point. You know, Herb Jones is still in there right now.
Yeah, I mean, that 43-17 third quarter by the Lakers basically makes last night's game, obsolete. There's no reason to really, there's no big takeaways from last night's game. As soon as it turned into a blowout, nothing really matters what happened with the Pelicans from there. So the 22 minutes that Murphy saw last night, I'm not worried about. Like you said, he was still the leading scorer, 14 points in those 22 minutes. Anytime he was on the floor, he was very aggressive on the offensive end. He's played 22, 30, and 22 minutes in the 3 games since he's returned from injury. Having some rust, kind of being eased back into the rotation shouldn't be a big surprise. But the fact that he already hit 30 minutes basically alleviates any concerns I would have. Will he be in the starting lineup? I think that's a bigger question mark. Herbert Jones has been playing so well for the Pelicans that I think they're going to stick with him for at least a little while. I mean, they're 12-11. They had some success in the in-season tournament. But if the overall team play falls off, they'll insert Murphy into the starting lineup. But right now, I fully expect Murphy, at least in the short term, to continue to be deployed kind of as a scoring threat off the bench. I have no concerns about him from a fantasy perspective. I was very high on him before he suffered his injury during training camp. And I expect him to be a monster, especially for rotisserie leagues, top 100 player, great percentages, 3-pointers, some defensive stats. I love Trey Murphy for fantasy this year.
I mean, if he's getting 30 minutes a game, you almost prefer he comes off the bench, because if he's going to be mixed in with backups, he's going to be a higher priority, higher usage rate when he's on the floor than trying to get the ball from McCollum or Zion or Ingram.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about the early game, Ken?
Yes, I'm sorry, Alex, but the Indiana Pacers beat Alex's Milwaukee Bucks 128-119 in Vegas. 37-point fourth quarter really won it for the Pacers. Halliburton was fantastic again. 27 points on 11 of 19 shooting. 15 dimes, 7 rebounds. Interesting. the Indiana bench outscored Milwaukee's bench 43-13. Halliburton hit a late fourth quarter three-pointer dagger, really, to win it for the Pacers, and he flashed the Dame Time watch pose. That was delicious. I enjoyed that. Alex, though, you added a note about Bucks veteran challenges, coaches, and teammates. What was this all about?
Yeah, Bobby Portis in the locker room. This is, I think, from Chris Haynes of Bleacher Report. Bobby Portis was in the locker room challenging Adrian Griffin, challenging his teammates. I think about effort, etc. Obviously, a long time coming. To be honest, this game. First of all, I just want to say Tyrese Halliburton is insane. He's so good. I mean, we all knew this. We play fantasy for a long time, but my God, I mean, he goes for 26 and 13, a triple-double against Boston, the best defensive backcourt in the league with 0 turnovers, then goes for another 0 turnover game against the Bucks with 27 and 15. He has 4 games this year of 0 turnovers, all of them at least 13 assists. It's unreal. But yeah, he's ridiculous. And the Bucks, they went to a zone, and it was horrible. I mean, I really don't know what they were doing out there. It was like a zone in the third quarter. They're giving up wide open, free throw line jumpers to Bruce Brown in the middle of the lane. There's dunker spot guys. Guys are hitting threes. It was just, the Bucks had a decent quarter, but a decent couple. Like the middle of the game for the Bucks was okay. Like second into third quarter was fine, but they got crushed in the fourth. It was horrible.
The Pacers make Boston and Milwaukee. They look old. They just can't keep up with that 4-quarter run and gun pace.
Yeah, it was awful. Let's see. I don't know if there were any.
It looks like
awesome. Now I don't.
You froze for a second there, Al. There we go.
Oh,
I think you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, guys. I was saying former Celtic Aaron Nesmith looked amazing. I don't think he's that good for fantasy, but as a real life player, he is a monster.
Great hustle
defender.
guy. He has learned from the experience in Boston that when his shot's not on, he's got to hustle on defense, and he just keeps hustling. And they love him for it. They keep throwing him minutes, playing him at power forward, even though he's 6'6", maybe. They do love the hustle minutes from Nesmith, but you're right. Fantasy-wise, it doesn't help as much, but so much energy.
Yeah, with Nesmith, I mean, he had a spot start. It wasn't even a spot start. He took over the starting power forward gig from Toppin for one game, but then Nesmith got injured and missed the next game, and Toppin had a nice little run and basically reclaimed that starting role. Nesmith has still been the guy closing games. He's been in the closing lineup for the Pacers most nights. Just great hustle, great effort. I do think in deeper leagues, he is a fantasy option.
Toppin has been hot from the field. His rebounding's terrible for a guy 6'9", but he has been hot shooting, 6 of 8, and was again 6 of 8 in the Bucks win. He's on a bit of a tear. We'll see if he keeps that going. But so, Alex, tell us about Saturday.
Well, Saturday, the in-season tournament championship, final title game. I don't know what you call it. Pacers versus Lakers. That's tomorrow. The game does not count for fantasy or regular season totals. Winner gets $500,000 for each player and maybe each coach. Can't quite remember. So we have to ask, Shannon, who do you have for this game?
Oof, tough. I am going to take the Pacers.
Whoa.
I believe in Halliburton. I mean, LeBron, AD, the Lakers are playing really well. And it certainly looks like, LeBron has stated that he wants this. He wants to have the in-season tournament, be the first one of the first champion, in-season tournament champion. So LeBron's definitely motivated and he's playing super well, but I believe in the Halliburton magic, and I think this is just part of his full breakout.
I'm with Shannon. I'm taking the Pacers too. I just don't think those Laker guards can keep up the pace with the Pacers and Halliburton. I see Buddy Hield getting some open threes. I just don't see D'Angelo Russell or Reeves. I think they ought to give a lot of minutes to Cam Reddish. She's the only one I think that might be able to keep this pace going. But I just think they're going to run LeBron and AD off the floor.
I'm going to take the Lakers, kind of regrettably, because I do love what the Pacers are doing. But it's a home game for them. I mean, like
It is.
Yeah. I mean, so as a quick aside, I think having the Lakers in the finals, Nick Friedel tweeted that it would be such a that the league needs the Lakers or the Knicks or these big markets in the finals. I think specifically having the Lakers in the finals for this game is massive for the optics for the NBA, because if you were paying attention on Twitter and even watching that Bucks Pacers game last night, the crowd was like non-existent. Like, it was horrible. I mean, it was, people were taking pictures who were in the crowd. It was like 50% full. They dim the lights around. You can't tell nobody's there. They're blaring music, so the atmosphere seems better. I mean, it was a terrible atmosphere for the first game, seriously. But then the Lakers game,
short drive from LA, it makes sense, right?
Right.
I mean, all the fans are there. We knew it'd be kind of home game. I remember in the betting picks article yesterday, I pointed out, hey, the Lakers have they give up 8 fewer points on defense per game when they play at home versus the road. And yeah, as you said, that sounded like and looked like a home Laker crowd, which just geography-wise makes a lot of sense.
Well, I don't think the NBA is going to go with a Thursday 2 p.m. Pacific tip-off for the in-season semis next year. That certainly didn't help, and it made me realize too. I know I have to look up the data on this, but I have some experience with those unexpected or the day games in the NBA are pretty rare. You might have some on Saturdays and Sundays, but players are going to be accustomed to that. But having them during the week is super rare, right? You have like MLK Day, and that's about it. Maybe some other holidays where they would do it, but it doesn't happen very often. And I know I've been in Vegas for multiple MLK days. It's actually one of my favorite days of the year because you have NBA from like 9 a.m. all the way through the end of the night. And those early games, they often that they hit the under on a very regular basis. And the Pacers Bucks game is a prime example. I mean, that game had a ridiculous, the line was ridiculous. I think
250 something,
257. It was the highest in 37 years.
Yeah, there you go. And as soon as it started, it started off pretty slow in the first quarter. I was like, dang, I should have actually thought about that early tip-off time and just how players aren't accustomed to doing that. And it probably, they probably will take a little while to get into their groove.
Well, there was some news outside of the in-season tournament that broke yesterday. Not great for Shannon's Pistons. Jalen Duren is now out 2 weeks with more ankle issues, because the Pistons need more bad news now. Duren missed 7 games in November due to similar ankle issues. Shannon, is the opportunity for beef stew, Bagley, or Wiseman?
Well, one thing I'm certainly not going to do is try to pretend like I can predict what Monty Williams will do with his starting rotation, his rotation as a whole. During his missed games in the past, we had Bagley get those starts. I think that's the most likely scenario is Bagley gets plugged in the starting lineup. A beef stew, I know a lot of Pistons fans are calling for beef stew to get moved up to the 5, reinsert Asar Thompson into the starting lineup alongside Bogdanovich, Cade, and then Hayes or Ivy. Beef stew just doesn't have the size to be a center. I think the rebounding is going to suffer significantly. He's 6'8". He has no vertical. Marvin Bagley's a mess on defense, but he has more size and he can actually jump off the floor. So Marvin Bagley or Wiseman, I would say, are more likely to get spot starts in place of Jalen Duren. But hopefully, Monty could surprise and go with beef stew. It does definitely prolong beef stew's viability as a fantasy option. I think we will eventually get to a point, maybe it's not until January, where, it's definitely not going to be until after Duren returns. But beef stew will become obsolete at some point this season. This just gives him an extra few weeks where he will be able to contribute if you're in 12-team or deeper leagues.
I was surprised when I went to we put together our waiver wire picks, and I went to see Beef Stew's roster percentage. It's at 56. I was like, that is shocking. I was gonna make him one of my pickups, and I was like, can't do it. Too many people have him already. But we'll talk about that situation more.
Starts at power forward, but now Bogdanovich is back, so that he's on. As Shannon says, he's kind of on the clock here. We'll see how much he's got left. All right, gentlemen. Oh, I also want to happy birthday shout out today to Boston Celtic and Wisconsinite Slam Hauser. Happy birthday, Slam. Yes, the Celtics are trying to.
We know you're listening. Happy birthday.
Alex, tell us about our good friends at Underdog.
Underdog Fantasy is the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with the promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus.
That's code RWNBA. All right, guys, let's go to our live fan feedback. Have some excellent questions in the feed. I'm going to start with this one. John Collins for Cameron Johnson trade. Any thoughts on that, fellas?
Because that's like an interesting, like deeper league, like bench guy for bench guy trade. Look, Collins has been pretty good lately. Especially with like Markkanen out, Kessler's coming off the bench, stuff like that. He's still he's still barely inside the top 100, I believe.
His numbers haven't really blossomed with Markkanen out, like you'd kind of hope.
Yeah, he's a little more involved, but he's still like outside the top 100. I would rather have Cam Johnson to kind of put a bow on it. He's just proven to have higher upside at this point, and Collins, I should say. Collins is having his opportunity, and he's not taking advantage of it. So I think it's just over, right? Like the hope of John Collins being like a top 50 player again, just gone.
All right, let's start with Shannon on this one. Oh,
I'm going to go with Cam Johnson as well, especially if you need more 3-pointers. He's the obvious choice there. I
still his upside hasn't been healthy this season yet. I don't think we've seen the best of Cam Johnson this year.
Yep. And he is, he's starting for the Nets. Even after Cam Thomas returned from injury, Cam Johnson stayed in the starting lineup. So it is Cam Johnson. John Collins is at risk of once Kessler gets healthy, once Olynyk gets healthy, and Markkanen, that he could lose minutes, if not a starting spot somewhere down the line, because he's the one different. He's the thing that's different from the team last year. They had early season success last year. They have John Collins locked in the starting lineup this season, and they're not nearly as effective. So I could see him getting moved out of the rotation at some point as well, the starting rotation.
All right, Shannon, you take this one. Zach traded C.J. McCollum for Drew Holiday. Would like to get your thoughts.
I like it. I think it's solid. It's pretty even trade. Essentially, if you have bigger needs in one area, you want more steals, you'd go with Holiday. Holiday typically will have better percentages as well. CJ might offer more upside on the 3-pointers, but things like assists are typically pretty even. I think Holiday might be a little bit higher on assists this year than he usually is, though. But it's a fairly even trade, and I don't think there's like one huge winner one way or the other. I think I would side with CJ, but again, I'm not gonna hammer either side as a true winner.
I might lean the other way. One, biased to Celtics, but also a little worried about CJ's lung issue and whether that's cleared up or not. And so I could, you're not going to deal him if he's out another week or two because of that. All right, one last one. This one back to you, Alex. Another Holiday, but not nearly as high ranked. Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Aaron Holiday?
Are you in a 20-team league, sir?
These are our people, Alex. Please.
No, I know. Look, I know. Holiday he popped off for like 22 points the other day, kind of randomly. I wouldn't say I'm like worried in a massive way about his minutes with Amen Thompson coming back, but I would say that gives me some concern. Of course, on the other hand, with Alexander Walker, you have Jaden McDaniels who's going to come back. I mean, honestly, I wish I could tell you neither. Like, is this a trade? Is this like a waiver wire situation? I might. Oh man. I mean, I think Aaron Holiday.
How about just the next week or two?
Well, Shannon, do you have a strong opinion on this? I'll pivot to you because
Yes, the answer is no. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the answer. That's who I prefer. Neither one of them has great upside, as been established by their play this season and past years. But Alexander Walker, if for some reason we get an extended absence from Edwards, Alexander Walker will be asked to take on a heavier load. That's why he had that one big 53-point fantasy game. I think it might have been the game that Ant was injured in. So I'm going with Alexander Walker. I agree. When Amen Thompson returns, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Amen Thompson later. When he returns, Holiday is out of the rotation. He is like 5 minutes per game max. He's just not that guy. Even in spot starts, he's well below a fantasy point per minute in spot starts for his career. You're looking at one big performance. He's had 2 30-point fantasy performances this year, and the most recent one came on December 6th. So that's why he's being brought up, but I would not overreact to that performance. I expect him to be out of the lineup, out of the rotation very soon, because Thompson probably returning within the next few days.
All right, excellent advice, gentlemen. Alex, take us now to the waiver wire.
It's waiver wire time, ladies and gentlemen. If you are new to the segment, this is how we do it. We each have 3 suggestions. 2 of those are quote-unquote regular picks rostered in 50% or fewer of typically Yahoo leagues. 1 long shot pick typically rostered in 25% or fewer Yahoo leagues. This upcoming week, all but 6 teams play 4 times. Those 6 teams have 3 games. So after a short week this week with the in-season tournament, the NBA is making it up next week by destroying everybody's knees, ankles, hips, etc.
It's worth it for the ratings, Alex.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that.
Alex, who is your number 1 pick here?
My number 1 pick is Shannon's Killian Hayes. 28% roster, Detroit Pistons. Look, Nick and I did our Monday podcast, and we got so many questions about the Pistons. They are the number 1 team garnering the most questions from fans at this point. Do I drop Asar Thompson? Do I drop Beef Stew? What's going on with Duran? What's going on with Jaden Ivey? Look, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going on.
Monty doesn't know.
Monty doesn't know what's going on. He spins a wheel every morning to determine his starting lineup. But Killian Hayes has started the past 3 games. He started much of the season before that. He's averaging 16, 4, and 4 during this stretch. He's 28% rostered, so he's available in most leagues. I think he's just worth picking up just to see if it continues. Like, he is worth having on a 12-team roster if he's playing 30 minutes a game for his assists and steals upside. I'm not going to tell you that he won't start coming off the bench again, that his minutes won't continue to go back and forth, but it's at least worth acknowledging that he is starting now.
And his shooting has gone from horrendous to just poor.
That's great for Killian.
Yeah. I mean, he was, high 30s. Now he's at almost 43% field goal percentage, which is a huge upgrade.
Ken, who is your first suggestion?
Well, first, let me say, fans, if you like our videos, please hit like and subscribe below. I have 2 names that we mentioned last week, and I'm going to repeat in my first 2 picks this week. The first one is center Dereck Lively of the Dallas Mavericks. He's rostered in 55% of teams on Yahoo. So I'm cheating a little, but only 16% on ESPN. ESPN, get with it. The rookie is the starting center for Dallas. I can't stress that enough. He is their starting center. The Mavericks, like most teams, have 4 games next week. And in Lively's 4 games, since returning from a minor back issue, he's averaging 10.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, and here's the huge one, 3.3 blocks a game while shooting 83% from the field. Dunks from Luka tend to juice your field goal percentage. Look, there's an old team that needs some young legs, and Lively has that. Plus, finally giving the Mavs some rim protection.
He's going to be annoying if you're in a daily lineup league or you're playing DFS because his performances are up and down.
Yeah.
But over the long term, over a period of a whole week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, it all evens out. He's gotten better pretty much every single game. It seems like he's improving. Shannon, who is your first suggestion?
All right, I'm going to go with a guy that has been around for a while, Derrick Jones. He's bounced around between Phoenix, Miami, Portland, Chicago. He's in Dallas this year. Oddly, he's only 26. I swore he was older than that, but he's putting together a career year. He's basically been locked into the Mavericks starting lineup, starting all but 1 game this season. And he's picked up his production of late over the past 4 games, 3 of which were starts. He is averaging 16.8 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1 steal, and 3.3 3-pointers. He's shooting 56% from the floor and 80% from the line over that 4-game stretch. The Mavericks are going to have to find players that work well alongside Luka and Kyrie. Josh Green's out right now. Grant Williams out. So Derrick Jones is benefiting some from that. But he gives them a defensive presence on the wing. He can hit 3-pointers. I don't think the value is going to be sustained for a long stretch, but for as long as he's playing this way and playing 30 minutes or more per game, I think he's worth a look in definitely 14 teamers and possibly 12 teamers if it's a deep enough roster.
Always good at blocks for a wing. And Josh Green's out probably 2 weeks at least. So there's a big opportunity.
Yeah, only 13% rostered on Yahoo.
There we go. Alex, who's your second pick?
Alex Caruso of the Chicago Bulls, who is 39% rostered. Zach LaVine's out 3 to 4 weeks, which means 2 things. 1, Caruso's going to play more. 2, the Bulls are going to continue winning games. LaVine has missed the past 3 games. Caruso got hurt in the second game, but in the first and third game saw 29 minutes and 30 minutes, which is obviously very good. In just 24 minutes per game this season, Caruso was ranked 91st. So if he's seeing closer to 30 minutes per game for a month, you got to add him. Basically, he's mostly a steal specialist. He'll get you some blocks from the guard position. And some assists as well. But he's in a really good spot with LaVine out for potentially up to a month and maybe having played his last game in a Bulls jersey.
Yeah, that's true. He is a top of a lot of trade rumors. I guess they like that people like that contract.
I think the Bulls dislike it and are hoping someone else will find it tolerable.
Are you talking about LaVine or Caruso?
Oh, LaVine.
Oh, I was talking about Caruso. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, Caruso's awesome. They got to showcase him.
All right.
Ken, who is your second suggestion?
Also a repeat from last week. My apologies. But Saddiq Bey, starting forward for your Atlanta Hawks. He's 52% rostered on Yahoo, 20% on ESPN. He started the last 5 games for the Hawks, and over those starts, he's averaged 14.5 points, 6.5 boards, 2.6 triples, and 1.2 steals while shooting a red-hot 58% from the field and 90% from the charity stripe. Hey, Jalen Johnson is out till after Christmas. Bey had a big 21.7 rebound game on Wednesday before the in-season stuff. And the Hawks have 4 games next week. Hey, Bey is a streaky outside shooter, but play him while he's hot.
I could confidently say the Pistons would have twice as many wins if Bey was still on the roster.
Yeah, what'd they get in that Bey trade? I forget what did they
Only
get?
a wise man. would
Wiseman?
know. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
right.
Shannon, yeah, who's your second suggestion here before you go on a Pistons rant?
I'm gonna take my recommendations to South Beach and highlight Caleb Martin. The playoff breakout star for the Heat last year, 28-year-old forward. Caleb Martin started his first game for the Heat on December 6th against Toronto. Had a monster game, 24 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 9 for 16 from the floor, 4 for 7 from downtown, 46 fantasy points. His role has steadily grown since returning to action. He was out the first part of the season with an injury, but he's now played 10 straight games. I believe we will see Caleb Martin play about 28, 30 minutes per game for the Heat. He is definitely a hold in 14-team leagues. I think he's a pickup in 12-team leagues. I like Caleb Martin. I like what he can do for fantasy rosters, and I'm not a believer in Highsmith. So Haywood Highsmith has been the starting power forward. I wouldn't be surprised if the Heat just go with a smaller lineup moving forward. And I do think there's a chance Caleb Martin could stick in that starting spot for an extended stretch here.
In short term, they really need Martin scoring in that starting lineup while Bam's out. We'll see what Spoelstra does when Bam comes back. But, yeah, they can't afford a Highsmith when they also have, Orlando Robinson at center.
Orlando Robinson, I think it's good. We should highlight him. He's not one of our top waiver wire picks, but he has been pretty damn good in spot starts for Bam. Over the past 2 games, 31 minutes, 15 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1.5 steals. If you need a big man, especially in daily leagues, Orlando Robinson is worth a look. To be determined how long Bam's going to be out, but it's last week I mentioned Thomas Bryant. It is not Thomas Bryant. It is Orlando Robinson. So that's the guy if you're looking for a big man to pick up.
Alex, who's your long shot for this week?
Marvin Bagley.
You cannot lay off those Pistons.
I know.
Gross.
9% rostered. I feel like I should have a down. Jalen Duren's out 2 weeks as a starter. Bagley's averaging 13 and 6. We have to see what the Pistons do tonight. I think that's important. Friday night, how they approach Duren being out. As we alluded to earlier in the show, Bagley has been starting, averages 13 and 6 with almost 2 assists, like a block. That's fine to start, especially on a 4-game week in a 12-team league. But with Monty Williams, you just never know. Maybe they start Wiseman. Maybe they shift Isaiah Stewart up to the 5, bring in a new starting 5. So just see what the Pistons do tonight. But tentatively speaking, Marvin Bagley is an ad.
I mean, Bagley will have an opportunity. I don't trust Monty to stick with any 5 during these 2 weeks. I think he'll be constantly tinkering as they lose more and more. And we'll see. We'll see. I hope you're right about Marvin.
Who's your long shot, Ken?
Today, I shifted from my usual long shot to my more natural, boring pick of the week, which we used to also do in prior seasons. I'm going to go DFS. Dorian Finney-Smith is rostered in 25% of leagues. Finney-Smith now qualifies as a forward center on Yahoo. I don't know why. Okay, but he does. Brooklyn has 4 games next week. In DFS's last 5 games, 12 points, 6 boards, 2.2 stocks, which he's always been good at, and 2.6 threes over almost 33 minutes a game. He's also shooting 50% from the field. Frankly, the Nets needs Finney-Smith's defense in there. I think he's going to keep getting monster minutes. Just a nice streaming option when the Nets have 4 games, as they do this upcoming week. But it is boring. He lacks upside, but a nice, safe streaming option for you.
And with DFS as well, he did move to a reserve role when Cam Thomas returned, but he still played 30 minutes off the bench in the most recent game on December 6th. So I like it. I like it, Ken. My long shot of the week, I'm going with Amen Thompson. I've been really thinking about it, praying, and that's the answer.
Wow.
He's been out, right? He's been out since early November with an ankle injury, but he is now healthy, and he is on assignment with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers in the G League. And he made his G League debut earlier this week and had an absolutely monster game. 29 points, 16 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks in 40 minutes. This guy is bonkers. He's the better of the, coming at least going into the draft, he was considered the better of the Thompson twins. And everyone saw how solid Asar was the first couple weeks of the season before Monty started tinkering with things in Detroit. Ahmed Thompson is more of a stash, though. 10-team, 12-team leagues, it's not even worth it. Your benches aren't deep enough. But if you're in a 14, 16-team league, deeper format where he is available and you have room on your bench to stash someone, he's more of a second half of the season guy as far as upside goes. I do think he's going to knock a guy like Aaron Holiday out of the rotation for the Rockets. And long-term, he could even take minutes from guys like Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks had a great start to the season, and he's coming off a good game against Oklahoma City, but he has a lot of stinkers in between. And I wouldn't be surprised if this team, depending on where they are in the standings, want to start giving minutes to Thompson. He has the size, even though he was drafted as a point guard, played primarily as a point guard last year. He has size where they could plug him in at the 2 or the 3, and he can play alongside Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet.
This depth for the Rockets is just annoying.
It is annoying.
Why is 37-year-old Jeff Green on this roster? Tari Eason deserves more minutes. Jason Tate, should he play or not? I don't know, but make up your freaking mind. Like Aaron, what are you doing with Cam Whitmore? You're not going to develop Whitmore at all with all these old guys. It just no. Reggie Bullock is on this team. What the hell's going on in Houston?
I don't know, but they're 9-9.
They're 9-9. Hey, welcome to the middle. Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. It's probably time to go to waiver.
Yes, DFS. Alex, take us to the Friday DFS picks advice from you and Shannon.
Every team in the league plays today except the Pacers and the Lakers. So get ready for a huge day of DFS. Highest over-under is a modest 241.5 from the Hawks at the 76ers. Look, we got a bunch of injuries today to prominent players. Durant's out. Trae Young's a game-time decision. We got Jalen Duren we talked about. Porzingis is probably going to come back. Daniel Gafford is questionable. Evan Mobley's questionable. Bam's out. Levine's out. Markkanen's still out. So just check it. Check the lineups. Check the RotoWire injury page. All
check
that
the lineup
stuff.
optimizer.
Check the optimizer.
Absolutely.
But Shannon, when you look at today's slate, is there one specific place your eyes go first?
Well, we talked about him a little bit earlier, but Orlando Robinson is our highest value of the night. He is 5,500 on FanDuel. As mentioned, Bam Adebayo's out already for Friday night's game, and Orlando Robinson's going to get the spot start. He's coming off a very solid outing in which he had 46 fantasy points in 33 minutes, 15 points, 12 rebounds, three steals, 1 block. 5,500. He's going up in price. His salary is definitely higher than it was a week ago, but he's still a very solid value at that place. So immediately, whether it's on FanDuel or DraftKings, that's the guy who I plugged in my lineup first.
Yeah, I think it's a good option. Not an easy matchup necessarily going up against Cleveland, but I think they'll need him out there. Mm-hmm. I was a little worried when they were going up against the Raptors that they would maybe try some small ball, get but I don't think they'll do that here. And they've proven to like Orlando Robinson. Some other interesting matchups. I think here you have Detroit versus Orlando. We talked about Jalen Duren being out. We'll see what they do there. I think there's some Batatse or Mo Wagner opportunities. I'm curious about Cole Anthony going up against the backcourt of the Detroit Pistons without Jalen Suggs available. I think that could be a big opportunity for him to have a big game after we saw what was it? Desmond Bain went for, was it 49 against the
49.
Pistons?
Yeah.
It's not just Desmond Bain either. It's also I've been telling everyone, go the over for whatever lead guard is facing the Pistons. Go the over. You had D'Angelo Russell go for like 60 fantasy points last week against the Pistons. Then you had Brunson drop over 60 fantasy points, and then Bain had over 70 fantasy points against the Pistons. Whoever the lead guard is, and tonight with the Magic, it's definitely Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony probably won't even start. They'll probably start. Yeah,
they'll get 25 plus minutes.
Yep, he will. They'll probably start Ant Black and Gary. Man, I wanted to call him Gary Suggs, but that's not right.
Gary Harris.
Because Jalen Suggs and Fultz are both out. Or Suggs is game time decision questionable right now. I would be surprised if he played based on the exit that he took in the previous game with that injury.
Suggs is out.
All right. He just got ruled out this morning, actually. So he is out now. So that leaves the opportunity. It's going to be Gary Harris, Ant Black, Cole Anthony are going to be the guards. Cole Anthony is the guy. He's already put together monster fantasy performances this year. He's not cheap. He's 7,100 on FanDuel, but I would not be surprised to see him have a monster game against the Pistons.
Alex, that big over under of 241 for the Hawks and Sixers. Who do you like in that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good opportunity. Well, look, I mean, Trae Young's questionable, so keep an eye on that. But if Young is out, it's in theory you want to go DeJounte Murray, but you'll probably have the DeAnthony Melton treatment, which will make it a bit of a struggle for him. That's kind of interesting to me. Look, I don't think Capella or Okongwu can really deal with Embiid either. I might kind of lean towards Embiid there. Hunter and Bey are like decent cash options, or if you just need a lineup filler, because they're starting Tobias Harris and Batum on the wing. Neither of those guys are good defenders, so that's an option there. I will say one guy I like on the slate outside of this game, Anthony Edwards, going up against the Memphis Grizzlies. They don't have anybody to guard him. That could end up being like, we could see like a 49-point game out of Edwards. So I like him as like a pay up option. This is we have Boston versus New York. Ken, we've seen these teams play twice already? At least.
Knicks always bring it against Boston. I don't know what it is. I think the Knicks view this as a rivalry. I'm not sure the Celtics do. Porzingis is clearly not going to be 100% coming back from his calf injury. So I could see another big game from Randall. Quentin Grimes griping about his role, by the way, recently. I don't know what that's all about. I'd be like, Quentin, be happy that you're starting in the NBA. But I'm worried about the C's tonight. They've had lots of time to prep for this, but Knicks always bring it against Boston. I can't explain why.
Yeah, it must be tough worrying about a 15-5 team. All right. So
it's a burden.
One other team I want to highlight for DFS purposes, Portland. We've got Jeremy Grant's already been ruled out. Ayton was listed as doubtful. Last I checked, it looks like he's unlikely to play, which opens up some things in the front court for Portland. You have Kamara received a spot start in the most recent game over at power forward in place of Grant. And then, it's always fun when there's just a totally unexpected name. I will fully admit I've never heard this guy's name spoken aloud, but Duop Reef is going to be the starting center again for Portland, assuming Ayton does indeed sit out. He started the most recent game for Portland and put up a decent game, 22 minutes, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block. He'll get another start tonight, most likely. Kamara will. Jabari Walker was heavily owned in the December 6th slate with Grant out, but he ended up coming off the bench, didn't play as many minutes as most folks expected. If for some reason Walker is announced as the starter, I like him for tonight's slate over Kamara. I don't know if that'll happen, in which case I'm probably avoiding the power forward spot, but Duop Reef, especially on DraftKings, I think is a solid value. And that's a roster where you can start 2 centers and you can even go Orlando Robinson and Duop.
You know what I love about Duop? 27-year-old 2-way contract. I didn't even know it was legal to give a 2-way contract to someone that old. But good for him. Good for him. Absolutely. I hope he has a baller game tonight.
Only player ever to play in the NBA out of Lee College. Before he went to LSU, Naz Reid's alma mater.
You love some Naz Reid.
Yes, I do. Anything else on this slate, Shannon, before we wrap things up?
That covers it. Let's go get those bags.
Okay. Well, it's time, Ken, for your old man rant.
Arg! Hey, New Orleans Pelicans! How about trying? The Pels were terrible last night. They almost single-handedly ruined the whole in-season tournament. New Orleans shot 36% from the field. Brandon Ingram, wasn't this a revenge game for you? Overhyped Zion shot 1 for 6 from the free throw line. Both of these forwards were a minus 33 in point differential, which is basically over 3 quarters because it was such a blowout they got yanked. Did these 2 guys play poker all night Wednesday? What the heck? The Pels scored 17 points in the third quarter. Veteran C.J. McCollum shot 4 of 14 and was a minus 38 point differential. Minus 38! The Lakers out-rebounded New Orleans 59-42. Pels, you'll always be a small market afterthought with crap efforts like this. Arg!
Ken picking on a small market. I wouldn't expect anything else from a Celtics fan.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I think we avoided any mispronounced names today. We got the Duop Reith mention, which is awesome. But that will wrap it up for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. It is presented by Underdog Fantasy. Ken, take us out of here.
Let's go back to Las Vegas. We're on TNT. Charles Barkley roasted Zion Williamson after the Pels got blown out by those Lakers. Charles said, quote, "The thing that disturbs me is he's not a young kid. When Moses Malone called me fat and lazy, I was a rookie. He's been in the league long enough. He's got 2 guys on the team that are better players than him, and they shouldn't be." End quote. Attention passengers, this 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line.